So one of my buddies works at this pizza place, and he comes over for the whole Super Bowl party thing, and he literally brings the debit machine from his work. And he's from Coburg, so he comes to Belleville with the debit machine from the pizza place in Coburg. How do you forget that?
This is BSS Sports.
Fires to the end zone. It's caught. It's Greg Lewis. Touchdown.
Brooks with one, lets it fly at the horn. It's gone.
Here's Crosby with a burst of speed up the middle. Gets open and scores.
A grand slam Ferreira.
Pure genius from David Beckham. And it's in. Thierry Henry with a bullet. Touchdown.
With Thomas Brooks, Steve Schill, and Trevor Struthers. Only on 91X.
The 8th day, the 2nd month, the 2016th year. My name is Steven Schill, here with the wonderful Thomas Brooks. We do not have Trevor with us today because he is checking out the Ottawa Senators game this evening. But we have some topics about the Super Bowl that I would enjoy discussing with you, Thomas. Mainly the halftime show. What's your opinion on it?
It felt kind of short. The only good thing about the halftime show, in my opinion, was Beyonce. I freaking love Beyonce. She was great. She took a tumble almost, but she recovered, made it look smooth like Queen Bee does. That was great. Apart from that,
apart from the fact that you're weird, I don't really like the whole halftime thing. Because of the fact that it was the 50th anniversary, the 50th Super Bowl. Why did they have the acts that they did? Like, I get it. The majority of the acts that they've ever have aren't necessarily the type of acts that people who generally watch football are huge fans of. If you go and ask the hardcore football fan, hey, are you a fan of Beyonce, Coldplay, and Bruno Mars? They're probably going to say no.
They're probably going to say Beyonce.
But why do they keep on bringing these guys back? Is it just for the TV ratings?
I guess it's for like the majority of people like these acts because they're high up on the music charts. You know what I'm saying? But if you were to take it from a perspective of football, I mean, imagine having Jay-Z and Beyonce perform at a halftime show.
I still think that would have been better than what they had, but I mean, you have 115 million people watching. Canada has what, 35 million? So technically you have all of Canada and the majority of the states. I think California has the same as Canada does as a whole for population. But a lot of people are tuning into the Super Bowl, and apparently next year, the Canadian channel will get the American commercials, which I think is kind of interesting because I feel we've missed out a bit. But just the one other topic that isn't kind of about sports, but it's about the Super Bowl, is the Budweiser commercial about the no drinking and driving. What was your take on that? They're
good commercials. They're heart-wrenchers, I guess.
They definitely made you think. Like, I mean, when I went into that, I was like, oh, it's going to be, intriguing. But that was very straight-faced and in your face and gets to the point.
Because you get all these funny...
I appreciated that.
Yeah, you get all these funny commercials, and then when it's one serious one, it's like, dang, it just has a greater effect, I guess.
I fully agree. All right, so the game itself, Cam Newton. There's something to be said about a guy who was never humble at all throughout this. Yes, I know that he gave the balls to the kids. Yes, I know that he does the dabs here and there. I know the team photo, everything else. But now that he lost... doesn't he look kind of stupid?
Not at all. I don't think he got to where he did just based on confidence and the way he carried himself. But with that being said, maybe he's not an old player. He can come back strong next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another strong Carolina team again next year. Maybe even in the Super Bowl.
Am I wrong with thinking that he's not humble? Because I'm not giving him the credit, because you're right. He could be confident, but am I wrong to criticize him for not being humble?
That's a tough one. I mean, maybe he's not humble. It just comes off that way. Or maybe he is humble. It just comes off that he isn't. He's just overly confident. But you could say the same thing about other players like in different leagues like Kobe. That he's a really successful player in the game of basketball. Never a humble guy. So maybe it just comes with being successful. It's just the confidence factor.
Fair enough. Now, we're also looking at Peyton Manning, who's probably going to retire from what we've understood in the way that he worded the post-game press conference. Von Miller getting the MVP of the game. Broncos go out on top. A little bit of a different game compared to a few years ago when the Broncos got absolutely hammered by the Seahawks. Do you think the Broncos were more prepared this time around, or did the Panthers just not live up to expectations of a 15-1 season, along with basically dismantling everybody they face in the playoffs?
I mean, I think it was always going to be a boring game, and I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but I really think it was always going to be a boring game just because it's defense versus defense. Number 1 and number 2 defense in the league came up against each other, and that doesn't really make for an exciting game. Not a lot of mistakes. I guess there was a couple of mistakes made, but nothing like major that was stood out, and like the weather was fine. It wasn't like a snowy day or anything. So it just wasn't going to be the most exciting football game in the world. But I mean, it had its ups and downs, I guess.
Well, I mean, at my place, and you popped by for a while because you were at the party next door, but then you came over to my place, which I appreciate. But it seemed like the majority of the people, because we had some football fans and some not football fans, is the only time that people really kind of more paid attention to the game. Because you're right, it was kind of a lackluster game at points, was when there was a fumble or something, or when we seen a guy running for long yardages, which happened very rarely. It seemed like there was nothing very spectacular about what was going on. But I mean, there's a lot of talk about how neither team really had much firepower, but of course you had Cam Newton constantly running everywhere. But then in the final couple of plays, the Cam had the chance to cement at least somewhat of a comeback. He gets sacked, he throws it away. For an MVP, it seemed like he kind of choked.
It wasn't his strongest game, that's for sure.
Well, I know Peyton didn't have a strong game either, but it seemed like in the final minutes, Cam kind of lost it.
You know what? It almost looked like he was throwing it away on purpose. I know that's not what he was doing that, but I remember being at your house and someone mentioning that it kind of looks like he's being paid to throw the game away. And that could be an interesting topic later. Probably not true, but it's still a thing.
Well, he's a guy that's, I believe, 27, and that's pretty young. I mean, he's got a long way to go. But the weird thing with the postgame conference is I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I've seen something where he actually walked out. Now, I wasn't able to watch all the postgame stuff, but I guess he walked out of a press conference. And this is about me talking with him being humble. Does that kind of discredit him and bring on more quote-unquote haters for next season?
Maybe, but you can't blame the guy. He was the favorite to win the Super Bowl and he hasn't won it. He doesn't want to talk about it. You're not going to want to talk about it. Think about it, man. If you go into something thinking that you're going to win it and you don't, you're not going to want to be like talking about it for the next 3 days. You just want to ignore the fact that it didn't happen and just get over it, Heat
of the moment. So in the NHL, it was a fairly interesting weekend. The Ottawa Senators in particular, because last Thursday, the Edmonton Oilers took a visit to Ottawa. They beat them 7-2, and then on the weekend, they thumped the Maple Leafs. What's with all of these teams having this run of where they are extremely good one night and extremely bad the next night? There seems to be no consistency anymore with the NHL.
Which isn't a bad thing. It's entertaining.
Enough,
you know what I'm saying? It's always going to make for an entertaining team or entertaining league, entertaining sport. Because if you think about it, look over in different sports like soccer and stuff in the Spanish league, you're always going to have the top two teams. It never ever changes.
Babcock was quoted as saying that if a player says he is fine after getting any kind of headshot, no matter what the circumstance, whether it be a small little clip or a full on, drive into the boards, that they should be allowed to play. Now, in Tyler Bozak's place when they were playing Ottawa, he got kind of clipped, and Bozak said he was fine, and then he went for a concussion protocol, and then it was found out that he did have something and that he wasn't allowed to return to the game. Now, for a coach who's getting paid an abnormally large amount of money to coach a team, isn't that kind of concerning that that's his take on concussion protocols? That if the player says he's fine, which most athletes are per se kind of tough guys in that scenario, would always say they're fine. Isn't that kind of like a weak point for Mike Babcock not really understanding the full consequence of this?
I guess so, but he's like an old school guy. If he says he's fine, he's fine. He's going to play. He wants his best players on the ice, right? And if you're a best player, maybe your head's hurting a little bit, you're still going on the ice in Mike Babcock's eyes.
Fair enough. That's probably why Mike Babcock will never get hired on any kind of health and safety board. But for the Leafs in general, what do you do if they're if you're the Leafs. There's not much to do because you can try to trade Phaneuf, who's been better this year. Not great, better than last. You got Jake Gardiner. You have Lupul, Kadri. You have the goaltender situation, which is, I don't even know what to say at this point. But everything's all topsy-turvy, and that's what they expected. Mike Babcock says this is going to be kind of a rough year. But they don't really have anything to build on with, and that's saying kind of openly, like, I think the Leafs have some good pieces, but I don't really think there's many other teams that would want half of their players.
The only player that they're not willing to trade at this point is Morgan Rielly. And what I think they have to do is get rid of those big contracts like Lupul and Phaneuf if they actually genuinely want to rebuild. And maybe if they get the first round draft pick in this upcoming draft, that's what they're going to base their building their team around.
There was an interesting topic about defenses in general. And if you look at the best teams in the league, it all starts with defense. The Edmonton Oilers, they've had how many first round picks? Like 3 or 4, and they've all picked forwards.
Yeah.
But the Edmonton Oilers haven't improved in how many years now? 4 or 5. And now we're looking at teams that are investing in defense and getting a return. Because to have a good team, championships are won with defense. Games are won with offense. Championships are won with defense. Do you think there's a strong argument that if you start from the back and move forward, that you're going to have a better squad?
I mean, yeah, you always got to start with. That's been a philosophy for a long time. You start with the goalie, move to the defense, build forward, or else you can't. The Edmonton Oilers are a perfect example of what almost not to do. They built from the front, maybe by accident, just because of the luck of the draw with the drafts. They always want to draft the best player, and the best player has been an offensive player like a forward. So, I mean, it just goes to show that that's not the way to do it in almost any sport. Maybe not basketball, but yeah.
Well, it's funny because it probably would have been this year that they clued in like, hey, we probably should take defense. Wait, Connor McDavid's on the board. Never mind.
Yeah, you can't not take Connor McDavid.
You can't not take the guy, and he's doing pretty well coming back from that. So a topic we rarely talk about here on BSS Sports is soccer. Not necessarily because we aren't soccer fans, but because we're in Canada and for some reason, hockey is the majority of the focus. However, soccer is a big part in the world. And going to the English Premier League, Liverpool, one of the most known and old clubs in football. And I don't know if you heard, but the fans staged a walkout at the 77-minute mark against Sunderland this past weekend because of proposed raised ticket prices. And I know you're a Liverpool fan, and do you agree with the fans of this walkout, or do you think the times are changing so a price increase of tickets is a good thing?
So basically, Anfield is a world famous stadium that Liverpool plays in. It has "You'll Never Walk Alone" as the theme song, which is a very famous song, and it's a very cool atmosphere to be in. It's one of the top 5 stadiums in Europe based on some statistics that you can find on the internet. I look at them all the time. They're in cool videos. And so basically, they're doing a renovation, building the Anfield Stadium to be bigger, and that has caused them to increase the prices of their tickets. Also, they're bringing in big name soccer players, so like Roberto Firmino, Coutinho is world class now, Benteke. All these, they got to pay for these players somehow, you know? Maybe the ticket sales have something to do with it. The fans walking out, maybe not the best thing to do if they want to see their club progress. So, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the walkout. I don't think it was worth it. And if you notice, it's not the Kop. Do you know what the Kop is, Steve?
I do not.
The Kop is the section behind the net on the home side where they kick off, and that's like the hardcore fans. And none of them walked out. It's the people who make money and have money, the business owners who basically walked out. So.
Fair enough. Well, in Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, that's called The Shed, in case you were curious.
I knew it was The Shed.
But yeah, no, the Chelsea and Manchester United played this weekend, 1-1 tie. Leicester City beat Manchester City.
Let me tell you about Leicester City. There is going to be a Hollywood movie about this team and Jamie Vardy if they win the league this year.
Well, Leicester City is basically a team that just did they get promoted this year or the year before that?
They got promoted this year.
Did they?
They really did. I'm serious. I think. I'll look it up.
We'll look it up. But yes, the team that literally got promoted this year or the year prior is beating all of the leagues. So all of the teams, they are beating all of the teams that are top class, spend millions of pounds, not dollars, pounds on these players.
They are the giant slayers.
And they're winning the league and beating everybody.
Exactly. The giant slayers, Leicester City, basically is what they are.
It's incredible. It's pretty cool. And it could be a thing for history. So if you get a chance to check out the game, watch Leicester City take on the big boys, and you might see a swinging football, because you wouldn't see this in Spain, Italy, or basically anywhere else. All right, so that's it for this episode of BSS Sports with myself, Stephen Schill, and Thomas Brooks. You can check us out on YouTube. We are now archiving on there at BSS Productions. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. We'll check you out.